please don't give it to me, because I'm blocked. I'm blocked from receiving. And anything you give to me, I'm not good enough for it. Someone showed me my value and it was too much for me. Sometimes it does take others to show us our worth, because sometimes it takes a person in our lives who is genuine and genuinely shows us our value enough to wake us up out of our low self-worth BS. Now, what I am not talking about in this video is to be chronically seeking validation. I made a video about that. You can check it out here, and I'll probably continue to, because this is a juicy thing for us to work on. If we're chronically seeking validation, we're not actually going to start fostering our self-worth, and it actually robs us of our power. If you're doing this, if you're chronically seeking validation, and you know how disempowering this actually feels, okay? To put the opinions and everything of others above your own, and to be disconnected from your intuition, basically. If that's you, I've got a video for you. You can check it out above. It may be of service to you. But what I'm talking about, if you struggle with low self-worth, you're also probably struggling with being in an abundant state. Because to be in a state of abundance means that you, on a somatic level, feel abundant, which also means that you know your worth. You are willing to receive, and you are not blocked from receiving. Maybe you've come into this to understanding what this is like, to seeing where you're blocked, or maybe you don't see where you're blocked yet, and maybe you're aware that there is a tie to your state of abundance and your self-worth. It is linked completely. So it's like, if you believe that you're not worthy of something, then you're not going to be able to receive it. It will not land. When are these moments in our lives where somebody gifts us with something? They gift us with something that shows us our worth, that we're of value, genuinely. And are we ready and willing to receive it? That's the question. When I think back of this on my journey, as I was coming up with this topic today, because I've begun to receive these like beautiful acts of service in my life right now. I moved into this new place. It's like a whole little collective of people, basically, of loved people working together. And I'm having these amazing experiences that I'm like, man, I wish this was a thing years ago when I was struggling and moving into a place all alone and all of this. But that was part of the course of this journey. It's part of the ascension, starting to become more and more aware, more and more abundant, receive more. But it starts from this little seed. And I'll tell you about this little seed that was planted in me when I was 17 years old. I was in limerence with this guy who I thought I was in love with, this guy who I grew up with in my neighborhood for 7 years. It can go on till basically the limerence bubble bursts. And don't worry if you're in limerence, I'll have many videos out about this because there's so many tendrils. And part of this limerence for me was involved in having low self-worth. It's always been very connected to my self-worth and where I'm at. And this guy, he really did love me. In fact, he did more for me than most partners that I had after him. And he was really the first serious relationship I had. And one day we were walking through the mall and he was holding my hand and we were passing a jewelry shop. And he said, "Let's go into the jewelry store." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because my baby should have a ring." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because you're my baby," he said. And so we walked into the jewelry store, and I felt this, basically what I'm going to call, it was a contraction. You know, and I'm saying contraction in like a yogic sense. This is going to feel like expansion when you're able to receive, or you are making an effort to receive. You open up and you surrender into the expansion. Or it's going to feel like a contraction. You're going to feel like you're suffocating maybe, which is very common for the fearful avoidant attachment style, which is the attachment style that I used to be. And it may be also very common for a dismissive avoidant. What dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance share in common is that sometimes when things are getting a little too serious, they're afraid of commitment, for example, they feel contracted, they feel like they're going to be suffocated and trapped. And that's why we get scared, and we don't have to, but we have this pattern that we run from the relationship to deactivate. It's called deactivation, because we're getting activated. It's becoming too much for our subconscious wiring, for our nervous system. So we're in this jewelry store, and he said, "What do you like?" It was, he picked for like his budget, and I chose this aquamarine ring. It had little aquamarine stones like my birthstone, and it had these little tiny diamonds on the side. And he got it made. And I wore it. Long story short, I sabotaged that relationship at about 9 months in, and really, really broke his heart in quite a narcissistic way, actually. And I know on this channel, I've been talking about narcissistic abuse and all of this. And I know it's easy. I don't want to go on a tangent on this, but I do want to point this out because I'm all about conscious relationships within yourself, with other people, with the world. We all have narcissistic tendencies. And the path of ascension is about weeding out these defilements, as it's called in Buddhism. And if you don't want to use Buddhist language, it's about actually healing that. The narcissist within, the selfish patterns, where we are forming barriers between ourselves and love. Love technically has no boundaries. And so this seed was planted of this self-worth, that someone showed me my value, and it was too much for me. In fact, it took me, I feel really sad saying this, it took me like over 15 years to deeply understand that this actually was rooted in self-worth. I had this big awakening experience that is too long to go into. Life-shattering, existential moments that made me so aware of how I was making amends to these past lovers of mine, and he was one. What I want to say here now is that sometimes it will be planted early on. And maybe you're thinking of someone in your life who planted that seed, but you could not receive it back then. You couldn't fully receive it. You couldn't feel it, but the seed was planted. And maybe you feel guilt about this, actually. I felt so guilty about how I behaved towards this partner that I actually went into this like complete shutdown. Like, it's kind of hard to ghost your partner when it's 2006 and they know where you live. Okay, there was more accountability in those days than today, where people are just swiping. And their parents know you and all. It was terrible how I behaved. And so maybe you feel this guilt. It's time maybe then to make amends. And I do stand by how it's done in 12-step programs, where if this will cause suffering to this person, you do it in a way, like an energetic way, where maybe you don't go to them or call them, but you do this asking consent to their energy. This is not told to me how to do this in 12-step groups, by the way. This is my own method. And you can do this energetically. You can just speak to their spirit. You can write this whole letter and really purge this out of you. I did this energy healing with this priestess, and then this night came, this Hindu holiday, and that's where I just was called to doing these amends. And all these things shifted for me, like the next day, a lot. But so, if this is you, if you feel guilt, if guilt is blocking you, it's time to heal this. It's time to heal this. And this may be with a lover. This may be with a lover. This may be with a family member. Those are the people who plant the first seeds for us.
So the seed may be watered by another person.
After that first one, you kind of rejected it a bit, but it's going to sink in, these little seed. Now you have another moment in your life. Something that came up for me was about 4 years ago, three and a half, during COVID. I was in an epic workaholic mode. Maybe I could have a bubble bath at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. when I was done with my never-ending to-do list. And it was never-ending. It was never-ending, and I was in total obsessive-compulsive perfectionist mode. It's a block. And I told one of my best friends about what I was going through. And this is a friend of mine who, when you walk into her bathroom, she has tons of like bath bombs. And she's even got them. I love this. I'm going to do this soon in my bathroom. A whole little like tea serving tray filled with bath bombs. And about a week later, I got a knock on the door for a package. I could smell them through the box. I opened up the box and there were 6 bath bombs in there. 6 of my favorite type at the time. A type that I would only splurge on one for myself at the time. And I had to work. I had to work to be allowed to take a bath with one. I had to prove that I was good enough. And there were 6 in that box. And she had this little note that she wrote and put inside. Something to the effect of, hey babe, you don't need to work for your self-care. Enjoy the bath bombs. XO, love pal. It was an experience for me to really enjoy each one of those. It was someone in my life showing me. And I became more aware. And it's not just the awareness, it's the experience of this that has to shatter through this barrier that we've put up. When I was outlining this video, I said, well, what is it? What is it that is the difference between when it lands and it doesn't land, when it's received and not? And what it seems is that it is about if you are willing to receive this. If you are aware that you've got this issue, and you're willing to unblock it and receive it. Awareness really is 90% of this unblocking. And so maybe you say, oh, who's mailed me 6 bath bombs? Here's the thing, is that when you are blocked, and I'm not like you, I'm like me too, okay? When we're blocked, when a person is blocked, they don't see the chances in their reality. You got to start small sometimes. You got to start small. And sometimes it comes in ways that are also these tiny little things, but maybe they're a little embarrassing. They're loving at the same time, but they're embarrassing. And that's where the shattering comes in. Like, I'll tell you a brief little story here, another one that was more embarrassing than that. My little brother and I, we were on this road trip through Florida, and I was on a budget as usual. I was cutting corners with self-care, basically. That was the first thing to get cut. Before I go on a rant about how necessary self-care is, let me finish the story. We were in this one shop, and there was this really cool nail polish. And it was like $12 or something. It was I think it was something that was a little more eco. And I was like, damn, no, I'm not going to spend that money on it. And he picked it up and he's like, I'll buy it for you. And I was like, oh no, you don't need to do that. You know, that kind of thing. You don't need, you know how that is where you want the thing, but you're like, no, I can't receive it. No, don't do it. No, please don't give it to me. because I'm blocked. I'm blocked from receiving. And anything you give to me, I'm not good enough for it. Maybe you're afraid because you think that someone will hold it over your head. That's something. We'll make a different video about that. But little brother buys me this nail polish. I was like, all right, fine. Thank you. Buys me this nail polish. And he goes, you deserve to have a nice nail polish. I'm buying it for you. I was like, okay. All right. It was this kind of validating moment by a man in my life who is my brother. Not even a man that I'm like in those days, maybe I'm looking at as like, do you approve of me? Do you validate me? No. See, it's a little embarrassing thing. Take the embarrassment. If you take it and you open up to it, you surrender and open to the receiving, you will start receiving more and more. And when you receive and you expand into this, you will feel, it feels like you're melting. You're melting the barrier off, basically. Maybe it'll feel like a singe. I don't know. Check in with me. Report back to me on what it feels like for you. Another moral of this story that I want to weave in here, for those of you who have shown love and have given to someone who could not receive it, I do want to say I'm sorry, because I know that that hurts. But deeper than that, what I want to say is that you know that love, true love, is unconditional. You give because you want to, because you can. And this person who could not receive, they may have been blocked because somebody was hanging it over their head. That receiving, if they received, it was conditional. I'm not saying this to excuse them. I'm saying this for you to remind yourself that you are love, unconditional love. And if you feel broken by this, to open yourself up more to what true love really is. Because if you feel broken by this, then that was giving out of expectation that they'll receive it. I know that's a hard one to accept. Okay? It's part of work that I've been doing for years. To just give because I can. Not to get something or to know that it's affected someone. Unconditional love, unconditional giving. And then last thing that I want to say for you is that you may have planted a seed for this person that is maybe today now blossomed or blossoming, that they now are able to love more, to receive more. Because I remembered this lover of mine who bought me this ring, who showed me that I was worthwhile, who did the complete opposite of the person who abused me years later, who I was engaged to, who threw my engagement ring across the room. I never found it again. Who put a down payment for the next one and then returned the down payment for drugs. I had a blueprint for what love was like, for what being valued really was like. And that blueprint continued to help me blossom more and more and more. Last but not least, if you're blocked, I'm giving you a prompt now. It's a gratitude prompt. And I know it's, gratitude. But it's true. It works. Is to start pointing out today, as soon as you watch this, the prime time for this is when you wake up or before going to bed. So because your subconscious is at its peak. It's more susceptible. But you can do it at any time of the day. What are 3 things that you've received today? And remember, when you're doing these gratitudes, feel it in your body. You've got to actually stimulate the expansion if it's not already there. You've got to stimulate it. And the things you're grateful for must be believable for you. Start small, maybe. Maybe it was just somebody opening the door for you. And don't let the blocks tell you otherwise. Oh, they're just opening it to get something. Oh, they're just doing that. Oh, he's just doing that to get into my pants. Maybe he is. Let me tell you, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I will say my life as a sex worker has been a complete tool for me to reprogram how I receive. Sometimes it was a practice in boundaries for saying, nope, this person's not right. I'm turning down $1,000 like it was nothing because I value myself more. Sometimes it was a matter of some client who I already dismissed and I said, no hard feelings, but you should find another mistress. We're not going to play again together. And when the pandemic hit, they kept sending gifts and gifts and trying to get my attention as though I would flex my boundaries again. I had decided my boundary and I was not going to take it back. But I received the gifts. I received them. It felt a little bit funny, but so be it. I'm not saying that's right, not saying that's wrong either. You'll find your way. You'll find your way, and this is not a black and white thing either. Because now I'm talking about abundance and now I'm talking about boundaries, but they do go hand in hand too. They go hand in hand, and it's not black and white. This is about you validating yourself as well in this. So it's a little bit of your own self-validation. It's a little bit of opening up to someone else valuing you. I hope I did not convolute the message too much. I hope you're still with me here. And if you like this video, if it was of service to you, give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel, it helps others who need it find it. Especially because titling these things is its own thing, okay? And if you want to stay connected, subscribe. Sending my love my way to you. Mwah. See you next time.